Wait a minute, Amelia, are you trying to tell me that you built a time machine out of a Carnival photo booth? Totally Killer is an Amazon original from Amazon Studios and MGM with the lion, even though the lion doesn't sound like that, it just sounds like the lion's letting out a massive goddamn burp from eating someone that got into the studio cage. Nevertheless, it is a send-up of 80 slashers with a little bit of Back to the Future, because somebody built a time machine out of a Carnival photo booth. And, well, somebody gets sent back in time to deal with the Sweet 16 Killer. Back in time in 1987. Back in time. Okay, I'm done. I'm done with the references there, except I'm totally not. This comes to us from director Nausicaa Khan. I'm pretty certain I totally butchered that. I do apologize. They've done Young Rock and a few other projects. Check out their IMDb page for the full list of their work. And 3 people wrote this. Took 3 people to force a lot of goddamn 80s references in here. A lot of Molly Ringwald references, a reference to the original Halloween, the original Halloween slasher, not the original Halloween holiday. That would be very weird. So, Jen D'Angelo, not Brown Sugar Baby. I get high off your love, don't know how to behave. I did not think I was going to do a D'Angelo reference. His songs are really gross, but you know what? He makes good music. Anyway, Quiz Lady and Hocus Pocus 2. That didn't exactly inspire a lot of confidence because Hocus Pocus 2 is terrible. I'm not faulting the writer, but I'm going to definitely fault the fact that Hocus Pocus 2 even fucking exists. And Dave, Madeline, who did the cleaning, and then Sasha Pearl Raver. Not Pearl River, not Pearl River Plunge. No Ahmed Johnson in here. More in the pity. Longtime wrestling fans are dying laughing in the comments, and everybody else is monumentally confused. Let's get married. People don't get married yet, but they get married in the future because they can see into the future. And then you have Karen Shipka, who plays Jamie Hughes. She was in the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, was also in Wildflower, a movie that I actually really enjoyed, and has been in some good stuff since. I still need to check out The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, but she is a main character, and various other people are in this, including Olivia Holt. And a lot of recognizable faces. Check out the cast because it would take too long to list what some of them have been in. And the Sweet 16 Killer, who's called that because he stabs his victims 16 times. Overkill? Sure. But, you know, it's John Hughes inspired, hence Jamie Hughes. Ha 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 ha. And, yeah, there is a certain incident after a certain death that involves her being sent back 35 years into the past to 1987. Via her friend Amelia's time machine. And she is back when the original killing started. And my God, she has to solve this mystery before the future is history. Totally Killer Tales, woohoo. Why I put that DuckTales reference in nearly every movie review, I don't know. That being said, speaking of the 80s, the DuckTales cartoon is actually pretty popular. I love the NES game. There's also video game references in this, and lots of 80 references. And okay, the fish out of water thing and the time travel aspect is fine. I didn't mind the send-up of 80 slashers, and I did enjoy the violence. The thing about this movie, and the main issue I had with it, is it's half as clever as it actually thinks it is. For every joke that works, a few don't. It's endearing enough, and there's, you know, enough intrigue and mystery as far as who the killer is, even though you probably can figure out who it is pretty early on, or maybe there's killers, or maybe everybody's a killer because everyone's a winner, and then MIA talks about paper planes and sends out really bad tweets. So all I want to do is move on from this reference. So yeah, when I think serial killer, I think of like 6 people. And shout out to Angie, who wishes that more people were dead. There are some funny lines in this. Actually, there are some witty lines. The thing that stops this movie from being, I don't want to say perfect, but as good as it could have been, was just the cleverness is here, and they think it's here. It works for the most part. I did like the killings, and I liked enough of the send-up of the slasher genre and the 80s stuff, and the fact that I'm your Venus, I'm your fire, and if you never made fun of that song, you have no goddamn idea how to make fun of music. Kiernan is fine. She actually, I think, has a bright future as far as doing horror and suspense projects, but also having a little bit of fun with the comedy. Olivia Holt is good. And the cast in the 80s, the cast in the current day, They're fine, but it is, again, pretty obvious to figure out who the fuck is actually responsible. And from there, we have a horror comedy. One that works more often than not, but one that aims for the stars and, to me, kind of just stays. It stays above sea level, I'll say that much. It's actually, mostly floating above sea level. It's almost walking on water, like that fake deity that people worship. But nevertheless, if you want to survive the return of the Sweet 16 Killer, you avoid the knife and keep your life. As an actual line said here. It's alright. We get the title like 10 minutes in, which is kind of hilarious, but it's on Amazon if you want to check it out. I am going to get into spoilers here in just a little bit, but overall, I recommend it. It's good enough, but it does end up, just not quite reaching the heights that it should. Jason Blum had something to do with it, which kind of explains why it was a little bit rough. Nevertheless, on Amazon. If you have an Amazon account, check it out. 3, 2, 1, and spoilers. So, there are various, adults in the future. We see their teenage versions. And some you would think weren't actually bad people were, and some that you would think, were cool actually weren't back then. I did like the Halloween neighborhood montage. That was, send up, that was kind of cool. Going down, one particular place that looked exactly like that neighborhood with the bushes, and then the alleyway where a truck actually goes by, and then the killer's like, hi. The mask is not very happy death day, but there are happy death day to you elements as far as the time travel and shit like that, except this is better than happy death day to you. And figuring out the killer in a horror comedy isn't the worst thing in the world, but especially when you don't think that anyone's in danger and nothing can really be affected in the future by changing the past. And if you want to get with me, you better make it last. Okay, yeah, let's stop with those references. Also, a quick question. How did the cell phone battery survive? How was the cell phone technology even working, even though it said no service? How was that device working in 1987? That's a glaring thing. Now it does factor into sending her back into the present instead of the future. Her friend Amelia, she has to meet the mother in high school, get her help and everything, because Amelia used her mom's designs to make this time machine. The killer ends up killing Jamie's mother, and actually a pretty brutal death scene. That's actually pretty good stuff. There were some nice death scenes here. And then, Jamie's all haunted. She's being talked to by Doug, who, actually, by the way, it turned out that Doug was actually the killer. We find out why a little bit later on. There's also a friend, old family friend named Chris that was doing a podcast themed around the Sweet 16 Killer. And also, he was trying to be like a news guy like his dad, but his dad was well respected. Jamie's dad doesn't really care for Chris, thinks he's kind of a leech. He's not wrong. And then she ends up, running into the killer. They go into this old phone booth, and boom, the knife goes in the machine, which activates the machine, and then everybody gets sent to the past. Well, her and the killer in this current time. So then she finds out her mom was a bully. She has to get through to her mom. She has to try to prevent these killings. There's a nice killing on a waterbed. That's actually a great scene. I'll give credit there. Some great send-up, but also some good horror elements. I don't know how the cell service, again, works in the past. Nevertheless, she sees her dad's younger self. And there was an earlier scene with the dad and the mom being alive. Hey, we really love you. We want to protect you, because the mother actually was part of was one of the survivors where the killings happened at a certain event. And Jamie's going to a concert, much like her mother. Her mother. Hello, mother. It's Brack's dad. He's the hump. He's going on the ceiling. Anybody that remembers that, I love you guys. So, Jamie's kind of, upset at her mom, but then realized after her mom got killed that she really should have been nicer to her, should have listened to her. The dad explains, we never got together in high school because we wouldn't have lasted, and you ended up, we ended up getting together, sometime around college, and we had you, and it's been great ever since. And then the stuff happens where she gets sent into the past, and girl gets killed on the waterbed. Jamie says that she is an exchange student from Prince Edward Island. She runs into young Doug and various other people, including Amelia's mom. She says she's psychic, even has a crystal. It seems legit. We get some 80s music, some nice montages. They go to a condo. Everybody gets high off of 80s weed, which is just basically plants you find in the ground instead of gummies. 80s weed sucks is something that's said. And then there's this side plot of this guy Damon that's a bit of a nerd, bit of a quiet guy that has his van that seems like it would be a killer van, but no, he just makes video games and designs stuff. And then the more she tries to help people out, the more people get killed. That doesn't exactly go all that well. One person gets dispatched in a pretty brutal scene, just sent down the stairs, just like Jimmy Snuka sent Nancy Argentino down the stairs. Fuck Jimmy Snuka, I'm glad he's dead. Never received his comeuppance for what happened. And then her and Amelia have to work together, but Amelia notices, hey, wait a second, your battery, I'm figuring this out. And even though I know nothing about technology, I know about electronics, I guess, and that your battery has 7.5 hours left, and we got to stop this. We got to send you back. We got to use the live broadcast, live news broadcast, and this quantum drop spinny thing to send you back. And then they use this one girl, Marissa, as bait, who's a bit of a nerd. Who likes to get BJs, behind the dumpster and in alleyways and at carnival rides, because BJs are a common joke in this movie. And then everybody's all over. They set it up as a trap, and they end up eventually stabbing and unmasking the killer. But what ends up happening actually throughout this whole deal is after they realize who it is, it's Doug. And why the hell would it be Doug? Why would Doug be targeting them? It turns out that Damon had a sister that they nicknamed Fat Trish that was Doug's girlfriend, and they were mocked, Doug and Trish, for kissing, getting their braces stuck together. And then there was this rumor of this thing with a coach and Trish, and she was brought to this party and gotten drunk, and she didn't want to confess this stuff because maybe something did happen, maybe something didn't happen, maybe the coach took advantage of her, which isn't cool, regardless. And then she drove home drunk and died, and Doug had not forgiven them, and that's why he decided to kill. And then it turns out there's another killer. Who's the other killer? Well, first we have to get to the quantum drop, be spun around and sent back. Amelia's mother, that is, manages to get out, and basically you have to stay in the center here and you'll be fine. But another killer shows up, and he's dispatched a couple people. Who is this other killer? It's Chris, because he wanted to keep the memory of the thing alive, so he traveled back in time for some reason to keep this going, and ended up basically stabbing the mother. And Jamie sends her mother out, her teenage mother, out the door of the spinning ride. Somehow the mother survives. Somehow, despite the fact that thing is spinning pretty fast. And then she ends up, having a nail gun and uses it that Amelia had in her tools and ends up dispatching Chris. She comes back to the present, and it turns out everything's fine. Everything's totally goddamn fine. Doug doesn't exist because he's dead, because he killed everybody. And also, it turns out that because they got together in high school, the parents did, they had a brother, a little bit of an older brother, that's also named Jamie and is also gay. And him and his husband have a daughter, an adopted daughter, a surrogate. I don't goddamn know. I don't really care. Love is love. Who cares? And Jamie's fine. And then we get a soundtrack send-off, and we see what characters are up to and all that. And it's good enough. It gets a B. It's not great, but it gets a B. Check it out. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Rentland. I'll see you soon.